Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to welcome you here to this wonderful, happy day at the American Enterprise Institute, where we're sharing the stage with His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, the great spiritual leader of India. I'm Arthur Brooks, President of the American Enterprise Institute. In February, as many of you know, we hosted His Holiness the Dalai Lama for the first of our ongoing series of conversations about human flourishing and human happiness. Now we're joined by this revered global religious leader to talk about the same set of pressing issues. What we remember at the American Enterprise Institute is that the set of circumstances that give the most people the best life don't revolve around material wealth. They revolve around the circumstances of human flourishing, of happiness, of global brotherhood, of all of these common values that the international brotherhood of men and women around the world have shared, and should have shared timelessly, and can going forward through our actions. Now, as the president of the American Enterprise Institute, it's probably easiest for me to tell you that global brotherhood is best served and happiness is best served, human flourishing, through greater and greater amounts of money. But I can't tell you that because it's not true. Now, in truth, a free society does make people tremendously wealthy. And that's something we should be very grateful for. In point of fact, 80% of starvation level poverty has been eradicated since 1970 because of free enterprise, because of globalization and free trade and property rights and rule of law and entrepreneurship, and these are wonderful, beautiful blessings. But they're not enough. They're not enough to give the most people the most satisfying life. We need to be able to earn our success, and success has to be denominated how we have it written on our hearts, whether this is starting a business, whether this is raising a family, whether this is bringing more people to greater religious faith. However we denominate our wealth in whatever terms, this is what a free society is all about. There's no better person to discuss what a fulfilling life means than His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. He's a humanitarian leader, a spiritual teacher, and an ambassador for peace. His vision of a stress-free, violence-free society has united millions of people all around the world through service projects and his courses offered by the Art of Living Foundation, which many of you are affiliated with. He was born in 1956 in southern India. He was a precocious and gifted child, we read. By the age of 4, he was already reciting parts of the Bhagavad Gita by heart, which is ancient Sanskrit scripture, as most of you know, and he was often found in deep meditation. By the age of 17, Sri Sri had graduated with degrees in both Vedic literature and Vedic physics. He founded the Art of Living as an international nonprofit educational and humanitarian organization. Its educational and self-development programs, as many of you know, are offering powerful tools to all of us to eliminate stress and foster a sense of well-being and belongingness in this chaotic world. The Art of Living courses are offered in 150 countries, and they are open to all of you and to me too. As a spiritual teacher, Sri Sri has rekindled the traditions of yoga and meditation and offered them in a form that's most relevant to all of us in this 21st century. Relying on ancient wisdom, he creates new techniques for personal and social transformation. These include Sudarshan Kriya, which has helped millions of people find stress from relief and discover their inner reservoirs of energy and inner silence in daily life. Namaste, Your Holiness, and welcome to AEI. I have the privilege of asking a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. So I'm going to start, Your Holiness, with the big question that's on my mind. You've written and spoken a huge amount on the subject of human happiness. So let's cut right to what we're all wondering. What's the secret to happiness?
Just be yourself. That's what I found. Just being yourself, and finding that inner reservoir of peace that we are all being gifted with.
Your books and lectures have touched on people being themselves, to be sure, and millions of people around the world have read them. Who influenced you the most? Who are the people who have been most influential in your life to make you who you are and to build your philosophy?
It's very difficult to say. If I just take few names, I won't be doing justice. But I would say it starts with my mother, of course. But then, when you're in the moment, when your mind is right now, here and now, then you are able to draw inspiration from everybody around you. Anytime, anywhere, people can inspire you. Because it's an internal phenomenon where you are in the moment and you are willing to move on. So I find that inspiration is opening that source of energy within you, and anyone can become a catalyst for that. A child in the street can inspire you, a carpenter can inspire you, a gardener can inspire you. Only you need to have that willingness to take the inspiration from that.
So any of us can be inspired. Right now, I could inspire Sri Sri.
Absolutely, that's why I'm here.
Well, you're inspiring me, Your Holiness. I want to get back just a minute to the subject of your secret to happiness, which is finding ourselves and being fully alive, as you've talked about really eloquently in your books and writings. But I want to put it specifically in the American context, what most of us here in this audience are dealing with every day. I study the subject of happiness personally, and one of the things that I've found in my surveys and in my data is only a third of Americans consider themselves very happy about their life. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to large numbers of Americans who are living a hectic lifestyle in a wonderfully free and secure country, but that notwithstanding, where only a third of us feel that we're very happy about our lives? What's the one thing that you would advise that we change such that we can increase that number?
You are limiting me to very narrow scope. Only one thing. Why one thing?
Well, how about the first 20 things?
I would go for 25 things, Well, there are different situations that we face, but mainly it's the stress that shrouds our happiness. Stress simply means too much to do, too little time, and no energy. Now, either increase your energy level or reduce your demands, then you'll be happy. And go slow, Drive behind a bicycle.
That's right. Practical wisdom at the American Enterprise Institute, my friends. Drive behind a bicycle. Earlier today, you and I were talking in the course of improving the quality of our lives in this hectic city about the importance of silence. Would you speak for a moment about the importance of silence and how you practice it and how we all should? He's practicing silence.
That's it. Got it? Hope you get it. Yeah, take a moment. Take a moment. Observe your breath. Calm down your mind. Relax your body. You find such peace, so much love within you. We're all born with this gift of love and peace. And somehow we forget to look within. No? That's most important. A few moments to introspect. Either eyes open or closed. Being in the moment, now and here. Relaxing. Suddenly connects you to yourself.
Every day, you're working with people to solve their problems in their daily lives. I mean, your philosophy is profoundly practical. One of the wonderful things that I notice about it is that it's not as if people have to attain instant inner consciousness. You're dealing with people where you find them, and you realize that people have day-to-day problems. Could you talk to me about your own problems? What are your problems?
You know, my big problem is I'm a dreamer. Knowing very well that there are violence, there are problems in the world, I still dream for a violence-free society, violence-free world. And I know it will take its own time, but I can't give up my dream. This is my big problem. I hold on to it. Though if you read newspapers and watch television, it looks or appears we are so far away from this dream. But yet I keep dreaming the same dream, to see the world united in love and peace and a violence-free, stress-free society.
One time you said that there are two ways of looking at life. One is by thinking, I'll be happy after I achieve a certain objective. The other is by saying, I'm happy come what may. Can you contrast these two ways of looking at life, and which is the better of the two?
Obviously the later. You know, you find happiness within yourself. You see your happiness is unconditional, and this is, one is a taker, another is a giver. You know, we're all born with one happiness in which we always felt happy when we took something out, right? As a kid, when we take things, we are happy. But as grandparents, there is a mature joy. When we give, we felt happy. Like grandmother at home, when she serves everybody, all the kids, when she makes different dishes, different cookies and serves, she feels a sense of happiness. So there is a joy in giving which is much more mature than the joy in taking or grabbing. So somewhere we need to graduate from taking to giving. And finding that we are the source of happiness, and come what may, I'll be happy and I'm going to spread happiness around me, is what I call as wisdom.
So the secret is not finding happiness. The secret to attaining happiness is giving happiness?
Correct. That's a mature happiness, wanting to, finding happiness in contributing, in sharing.
That's a funny philosophy for a lot of Western thinkers who say the secret to getting rich is giving away all your money.
Yeah, there is a joy in giving. That's what Americans do. A lot more rich Americans find happiness when they are sharing their wealth.
A paradox that we have to take to heart. Well, of course, to have something to give away, we have to earn it first. And this turns us to a real national debate we're having in America today, which is the debate about work. We've been talking now for 5 years about the value of work, of low-wage work, of high-wage work, of whether or not there are dead-end jobs. Can you tell me your views, not just because of money, but to the individual, to the soul, about the value of work, aside from its monetary advantages?
Hard work keeps you out of trouble. If you don't do anything, then your mind runs too fast and goes the way where you don't want to go. So work is essential to keep yourself busy and to keep you sane and creative as well. Well, there are certain ethics in work also. Making money is not bad, but if it's done through unethical means, it's not going to give you a good night's sleep. That's for sure.
But you recommend to all of your followers that as a first step toward happiness that they engage in hard work? And do you believe that governance should be trying to make sure that everybody can work and nobody's thrown out of work?
Yeah, of course. There should be opportunity for everyone to express themselves, their creativity, their talents, whatever they have. Yeah, their capabilities.
Is your philosophy of compassion compatible with the free enterprise system and capitalism?
Definitely, definitely. Capitalism without compassion will not lead to a just society. Capitalism, only, a rich person can be compassionate. A poor man's compassion has no value.
So we actually need the means to be compassionate,
Absolutely.
space, time, and resources to show our compassion?
Absolutely. Resources to be compassionate.
So it's interesting that one of the things that you've told me outside of the audience here, you told me here that compassion and morality must be a precursor to an effective economic system, but you're also saying that an effective economic system is important for compassion. Is it true that compassion and free enterprise are intertwined and one must build on the other?
See, whether capitalism, communism, socialism, or whatever ism it is, secularism, no ism will work without humanism. And the heart of humanism is compassion. And that's essential. That's essential. Without that, nothing can work. Everything will be lame. And we found this throughout the world. No? There are ample examples where whenever the human values are found missing, all these isms remain just in books as a success and really not on the ground.
Your Holiness, do you believe in evil?
I don't believe in evil, but I know evil is a shadow or lack of goodness.
It's an absence of love.
Absence of goodness, absence of love, absence of light. You know, we in India we believe in 6 types of evil. You know, pride, greed, arrogance, and then jealousy, anger, and lust. So any of these distortions of love, I would say, or lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom, can destroy one's life.
If evil is the lack of love, or the lack of light, is the solution simply greater love?
Absolutely. Turn towards light and all this will disappear.
This is very close, of course, to the philosophy of the Christian religion, which talks about the 7 deadly sins. You just named 6 of them. The 7th that we have is gluttony. And perhaps as India becomes more and more and more prosperous, you'll add gluttony to your list.
I think we cover it in the greed.
Let's talk a little bit about the state of our countries. So let's move outside of simply personal morality and some of these issues to geopolitics for a moment, because I know this is of great interest to you. You have worship centers and personal development centers in 150 across so many different countries and different languages and different religions. And you see geopolitics up close. Your Art of Living Center in Pakistan was recently burned to the ground, which is obviously really traumatic. Thank God nobody was hurt in this. Will you tell the story of that and the strange premonition that you had before you lost your Art of Living Center in Pakistan?
Yeah, just a couple of days back, we were supposed to have a silent retreat in that place, and then we have shifted our venue to another place. Over 60 members who are going to be in silence on that weekend. Usually weekend our centers is buzzing with activity. About 100, 150 people come there and they practice meditation. And God's grace or good luck that we shifted that particular weekend. And that's when they came and gutted our whole center to the floor and sent threat letters to many of our teachers. The Taliban's have claimed responsibility, but this is sheer lack of understanding, ignorance of people. Say, only my way is the only way sort of mindset has created so much problem in the world today, not just in Pakistan, all over. Fundamentalists, fanatics, and terrorists are nurtured with this philosophy.
Hmm.
And I feel it's absolutely essential today to give that multi-faith and multicultural education right from young age. So a child doesn't grow up thinking only I go to heaven and I have the right version of what God wants, others don't, you know. When they think only I go to heaven and everybody goes to hell, they create hell for everyone else.
Hmm.
So this broad understanding about religion must be imparted as probably the UNESCO should put this as a requirements all over the world. Multi-religious or multicultural education, a must for children all over the world.
Of course, multicultural, or diverse ideas of pluralism have been tolerated and embraced in India and the United States for many years, and we believe this is the source of our strength and the source of our peace. It's much harder to bring this to Pakistan. It's much harder to bring this to many countries around the world that are not pluralistic, they're not democratic. What can each one of us do to help bring this source of happiness, a piece of moral living through pluralism to countries like Pakistan?
Scientific education and persuading different countries to multiculturalism or pluralism. I think they can. They can. Like Jordan and many other countries, Turkey, Jordan, many countries in the Islamic world also, they welcome, interfaith dialogues. Unfortunately, today they have started. Bahrain recently had a interfaith dialogue, first interfaith dialogue they had. Muscat they are beginning to have. See, it's not just between religions, it's inter-religions and intra-religious conflicts are happening. What we see today in Iraq is not between Christianity and Islam, it is between Islam and Islam. And I mean, this is dangerous in the world. So the sense of tolerance, sense of appreciating the other's point of view, this need to be cultivated in youths. Otherwise, no religion or no religions are safe in the world.
Now, one approach toward greater pluralism that we see our friends in Europe taking is trying to get rid of religion entirely. What's your view on that?
I think religion has its own place. But I feel spirituality is something which rises above religion and unites people's hearts and mind. And every religion has got that spiritual values in it. So that need to be highlighted much more than the practices that different sects practice. I would say we need to have the unity in diversity, at the same time enrich the differences, diversity also. Because that is the beauty of our planet. We're so different and there are different rituals, different practices. None of it should be lost. Everything has its own value. But there is a unifying force of all the traditions, religions. That's values, compassion, love, togetherness. These values need to take front seat.
You're now in the United States in the world's oldest democracy. Your home country is the world's largest democracy. The United States and India have a natural alliance, and we believe at AEI that it's one of the most important global relationships for geopolitical order, for safety, for peace around the world over the next 50 years. But there are skeptics about our way of life. There are skeptics who believe, particularly in the case of India, that India is being slowed down in its economic development by its messy democracy. What's your view?
Corruption and the number game is a big problem in India. That has been, because it's such a large population and many issues in the country, The number games have been a very big issue in the past decade. So, though there are good leaders in the government who want to take good steps of economic reforms, they've always been pulled down by regional parties or allies who don't see eye to eye with each other. But fortunately, this time they have got a clear mandate. The government has been given a clear mandate, so they are not sort of collision government now of different parties. This can be used, can be of a good advantage for faster progress. But one thing, we would prefer to be democracy, even if it's slower, than a dictatorship, which could be a faster one. Because here, the voice of individuals are heard, different voices could be heard in democracy, and which in dictatorship, there is no chance. For anything, we will not want a dictatorship.
We've talked a little bit about capitalism, which of course is on the rise in India, thank goodness, for the prosperity and fulfillment of the Indian people. It creates great wealth and it can alleviate poverty, and indeed nothing has alleviated poverty on a mass scale around the world before capitalism. There's nothing else that's done it. But it can also encourage individualism and it can encourage materialism. What's the solution to that? How can we alleviate the negative consequences of materialism in each of our lives, and how can we teach that in our free societies?
As I said, consumerism is a problem. Being rich is not wise. It's not wrong to be rich, but it's wrong to exploit the people and the planet. And that is what is happening in many places. People are trying to become rich and undermining the environment, undermining the laws of the society, of the nation. This is where the problem arises. And corporate social responsibility. This is something that every corporation should undertake. Do something for those around us. And now in India, they have made it a law that every company must invest 3% of their earning, of their profit, in the corporate social responsibility. So that sense of giving back to society is now made a law, actually. Even if you are not willing, you have to do something about it.
So wealth is good, but we must underlie it with a sense of proper morality.
Absolutely. Ethics. Creation of wealth should always go along with distribution of it also. You create and you give it out, not keep it all for yourself. That's where the problem is.
So is it your view that being rich brings a particular set of moral responsibilities to a person?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Now, this is not a new concept in Western capitalism. The father of Western capitalism was Adam Smith from the late 1700s, and his most important book was The Theory of Moral Sentiments, which he wrote about the moral basis of a good and free society before anything he wrote about capitalism. So this is and this is something that, of course, you've written about, but it bridges East and West.
Absolutely. This is an ancient concept as well.
India is one of the most exciting and dynamic societies in the world today, but it's in one of the world's roughest neighborhoods geopolitically. We've talked a little bit about the difficulties that you personally have experienced with your center in Pakistan. How do you deal more generally with the problems of terrorism and religious extremism that we see actually increasing around the world today?
This is a big problem. As I said, lack of understanding, lack of sense of belongingness, lack of trust between people, between communities, and probably misinterpretation of scriptures. So I feel every child should know a little bit about all the world religions and start respecting them all. Then you grow up with a broad mindset, and terrorism can be nipped at the very bud. So it's creating sense of belonging. That's why I feel spirituality has a big role to play here. It's uniting people of all different religions and sects within a religion to come to an understanding of we're all part of one universal human family. You know, it's sense of identity which creates this sort of distinction between people. That one feels that I belong to a particular sect, and now I'm ready to sacrifice my life in order to hold on to that identity. Now, if I get a bigger identity, I am part of the human society. If I hold on to that bigger identity that I am, then many of these violence or suicide bombing that's happening around the world and the terrorism would right away stop. Again, scientific education and spiritual education, combined with spiritual education. Perhaps UNESCO should take on this to every country in the world. UN can say that this is a mandatory in the world to have this, like we had vaccination mandatory all over the world. So this could be vaccination against terrorism.
With diseases, of course, vaccination is critical. It's very important. But you also need to treat these diseases, and sometimes you need to treat them aggressively. When it comes to terrorism and these threats to people who are trying to live in peace, what's your view about the role of national security? What's your view of military intervention in these places that really are having a lot of problems and creating problems for you and me too?
I think military intervention should be the last option. Before that, there should be enough diplomatic or interaction. There should be more communication should be built between the trust building, communication building efforts should be made. So I would say that track 2 diplomacy should be engaged much more vigorously than it has been in the past. So for this social activists, faith-based organization, religious leaders, and businessmen. Businessmen can be a very good bridge between different communities. They can play a very good role, very big role in this sense. So they should do all these efforts. When nothing succeeds, or we don't, then last option should be the military one.
But you don't rule it out. Is that correct?
Otherwise, you can't exist. You don't want innocent people to wait for their lives to be lost. So that option should be the last option, though it's not my preferred option.
Right. Shall we turn to the audience now? We have some wonderful people who are waiting to ask some questions, and I'm going to start with AEI's head of India studies, Sadanand Dume, who's here, and he's going to ask us about the political situation in India today.
Thank you very much. Sri Sri, many people have written about India's new Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a politician, but you're one of the few people who actually knows him as a man. So could you share your thoughts on Modi the man?
He's a tough man with a soft heart. Few people know that he has such a soft heart. And he means business. I think that says it all.
I'd like to add that the new Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is welcome at AEI. And my first question to him will be, tell us about Sri Sri the man. I want to talk, Himal Shah. Where is Himal? Here is working for us in our India studies as well, and has a question for us about something that's on the minds of a lot of young people in our audience.
Thank you. In this busy, complex world of Facebook, Twitter, and the internet as a whole, what are your thoughts on how the fast pace of social media is affecting our happiness?
I think you shouldn't be drowned in it. I've seen people getting onto the Twitter as soon as they wake up until they go to bed in the night. They're almost stuck to the Twitters, Facebook. But at the same time, it's a very, very important media. It's a very important thing in one's life. Everyone should be on it because they get information right from the source and fresh information time to time. So you can air your ideas, your opinion, your mind through Twitters and Facebook. And it's done revolution, I would say. It's essential. At the same time, it should not be misused.
Your Holiness, 75 people just tweeted out that too many people are stuck on Twitter. The irony. How about a little bit on politics and the link between politics and faith in our modern world? Let's turn to Max Samuels from the University of Chicago. Where's Max? Hi, Max.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Sri Sri, you've spoken in the past about spiritualizing politics to avoid governmental corruption. What does it really look like to make politics more spiritual, yet not necessarily more religious? And how does this spiritualization help governments resist the temptations of power?
Yeah. When I say we should spiritualize politics, socialize business, and secularize religion, spiritualized politics is having that broad mindset towards what is needed for society on a long run, not for immediate, not dishing out immediate soaps which would run the country into difficulty on a long run. Second is, Mahatma Gandhi has given some living examples of how you can spiritualize politics. After Mahatma Gandhi's demise, there was a period in India where politicians were respected almost like spiritual leaders or as celebrities in society because they stood for the welfare of society, not for their personal ambitions. So when personal ambitions take a back seat and good of society is your prime goal, then you have spiritualized the politics. And walk the talk and talk the walk is another very important, I would say, principle. As I said, clarity in mind, purity in heart, and sincerity in action can make one good politician or spiritual politician.
Can you continue along these lines and help me understand how I can be a spiritual economist?
You're already one, Max.
Somebody's got to tweet that.
Certified. ISO.
Certified by Sri Sri himself. It's like when we had the Dalai Lama here, one of our guests said that I was the spiritual leader of the capitalist people.
I endorse it.
Let's turn back to a little bit more on this juncture between faith and in economic systems. And I want to turn to Alex Bolt from the Competitive Enterprise Institute.
Thank you for taking my question. Religious beliefs can affect economic views and philosophical views, and I'm wondering, how does your faith inform your belief in the ability of the free enterprise system to encourage human flourishing? Also, what does your faith say about wealth creation and working for success?
Can I get that question, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this a question?
Yeah.
Time to
We have cheating notes up here, so.
You know, in India, there has always been free entrepreneurship. Freedom has always been there on that sense. And creation of wealth, as I said, if it is within the norms of ethics, it follows certain ethics, then it is good. You know, poverty is not all holy and richness is not all sin. No. But if poverty is out of one's laziness, it is a sin, and richness, if it is out of greed and unethical means, it is a sin as well. So that's the measuring point. How you create wealth. Does your creating wealth cause problem to many people? Then it's no good. But your creating wealth brings comfort to many people, employment to many people, solace to many people. It's good. Go for it.
We have a question here submitted by Grover Norquist from the Americans for Tax Reform. He's asked me to ask this question to you, Sri Sri. Do you think the world's becoming a better place?
In parts, yes. In parts, no. So you can't generalize. These are the world. If you say, is it bright here? Yes, it's bright here in DC, but it's dark somewhere else in the world. So things are getting better in some places and things are getting bad in some other places. And now it's for the world community to wake up and see how we can, bring more harmony in the world as such. And it's happening. It's happening in some way.
An example to me of the world getting better. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. Impossible. But I am, and my life is better. But the problem is, how do we put the things that we're learning today into action? And that's your point. Okay. We can use the wonderful, wonderful avenues for progress in human civilization for good, or we can ignore them. And that's the responsibility you're giving all of us today. Is that our charge?
Right. We need to share what we have and reduce the suffering and pain of people where they are, caught up in this whirlpool of distress and, societal and individual issues, family issues. Families are breaking up in many places, where we can go and bridge the communication gap that's happening more and more in society.
Mary Kate Helm from the University of Virginia.
Thank you. You have millions of followers all over the world. What are the biggest obstacles that they face to achieving personal happiness? Do these obstacles differ across countries based on their general standard of living, or are they universally applicable to humankind? For instance, would these obstacles be different in India and the United States?
Yeah, as many different cultures or languages are there in the planet, that many problems, issues, challenges, I would say challenges are there. So basically you can categorize them due to job or, due to financial problem, communication within the group or among the friend circle, family, that problem, health issues, and some people don't know why they are unhappy. This is another issue. They are unhappy, but they can't pinpoint and say, I'm unhappy due to this reason or this cause. So these are general issues that come up. Between India and US, I would say, when a problem stays for too long, people get used to it. It no longer appears to be a problem for them. Somewhere insensitivity towards a problem is itself is a problem. For example, if you're insensitive to the environment, if you live in a slum and you have accepted that, but it's a problem for the society. Scams and slums have caused a lot of problem in India. In the same way, here in USA, if you see the classroom violence, that you send kids to your school and you don't know what will happen to them. There is such a fear in parents about their kids coming home back safely. Because we hear now and then there is the gun culture, more gun stores than grocery stores in USA is what I read in a newspaper, which is really appalling. And depression, rising depression in Europe, 40% of the population, 38 point some percentage population are suffering depression. So these are major issues. Depression may not be an issue in India, but corruption and poverty is an issue. And eroding family values is another issue in India. So, but again, as I said, when we bring back the human values in society, so that people become more proactive, stand up against corruption, and that's what you have seen in the recent years, in the past couple of years, people have stood up against these ills of society. Addiction is another big problem in India. In the last 3 years, alcoholism has increased threefolds. Drug abuse have almost consumed a couple of northern states in India. So strict enforcement of laws is a big issue there. Whereas here the laws are very good, you have very good enforcement. As far as I know, we have very good law enforcement here. These are challenges still to be faced in India. And the big population is a big hindrance also.
Let's talk now about leadership. You've met a lot of world leaders. You and I have talked about some. We talked about Prime Minister Modi, who's facing incredible challenges in India and that part of the world, and indeed the whole world. Mark Zelstein from the International Association for Human Values has a particular question about leadership.
Thank you. Sri Sri, my question, it builds a little bit on what you spoke about earlier on spiritualizing politics. The world is facing unprecedented challenges on many levels today. And in the wake of public dissatisfaction with political leaders, what type of leadership do we really need today to be effective in responding to the 21st century challenges?
A leader who does not who doesn't say that I am a leader, but leads from the back. A leader who does not assume that I am a leader and I'm going to lead you with that sense, but rather who is a catalyst, more or less like a catalyst, who promotes leadership from behind, rather more an inspiration than someone who is in charge. That type of leader would work more in an educated society. A society which lacks basic education, they need a decisive leader. So you go to a doctor, and the doctor says, suppose, perhaps this will work, this medicine will work, maybe you can try, then you hesitate to take the drug, right? So doctor has to be very decisive. He says, this will work, you take it. So that confidence in a leader makes a lot of sense when people are not that educated, that high in their intellectual pursuit. But whereas people with wisdom, with high intellectual quotient, intelligent quotient, high intellectual bent of mind, they need to be promoted from behind. They need to be encouraged to walk the path. So a leader needs to first of all see to whom he is leading and where he is leading them.
I want to turn now to, we had a question a minute ago about social media and how it fragments our society and makes us less able to engage with one another. But a question about how the modern world is making it easier or harder to express trust and compassion for one another. So for that, I'd like to turn to Devon Shah from your own Art of Living.
Thank you. Gurudev, do you think world citizens are closer or further from the virtues of trust and compassion with the advent of modern technology and entertainment?
If people are using modern technology, yes, then they're closer. But there are a lot of people in the world, you must know, they have not even seen a cell phone. They have not seen television. And so you can't generalize this. As I said, if you move around the world, you find all different types of people. There are people who are living in the 17th century, even now. But one thing is common with everybody, love and compassion. It's love and compassion, sense of belongingness. In fact, it's much more in the rural areas, in those remote areas of the planet where they don't have any access to media. They have that humanism. They have the human values. They connect with people. There is sincerity in them. You can find in them. Yeah.
Sri Sri, we're coming to the end of our time. We only have about 2 minutes left. Would you permit me to see if I can summarize our conversation today in
course.
3 points?
Yeah, sure.
And then you'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I think that we understand the conversation today to revolve around 3 truths that Sri Sri has shared with us, and indeed is sharing with us through his ministry around the world. The first is, as regards our questions here today, this is a think tank dedicated to the free enterprise system. So we asked about the appropriateness and the importance of free enterprise. And I think Sri Sri's main point is this. Free enterprise is a beautiful blessing, but humanism always and everywhere must come first. The second is that the secret to happiness is inside each one of us. And it's our job to understand our true selves and to get to know our true selves. The third is that the purpose of each individual in this world is threefold: to serve one another, to work hard to create value with our lives and value in the lives of others, and to remember our common humanity. If we've done these things, we've done our job as people, and we will bless others today and going forward. Is that fair, Your Holiness?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in another round of applause for the wonderful religious leader, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.